to welcome to the podcast today, Jared Frost. Jared is the owner and founder of Blue Pebble Group, a real estate sales team focused on helping families find peace and fulfillment in their lives by providing the highest quality real estate transaction experience in the market. It is Jared's mission to bring his past career experience to benefit Blue Pebble's clients on the most important financial decision of their lives, buying or selling a home. It's a big thing.
It is a big thing.
It's a big thing. In his free time, Jared can be found on the golf course, shooting sporting clays, or gracefully tumbling down Colorado's beautiful ski areas. Graceful tumbling. Yeah. Graceful tumbling.
When you're born in Chicago, that's what you do.
Oh, I call it being paying to be cold and miserable.
Gotcha. That works too.
So I don't ski.
Yeah, we know all about that in Chicago. So
yeah, we don't do that. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
coming. First question's always the same. What was your first job?
My first job?
First ever.
Are we going back to babysitting, or is it?
Sure. Did you babysit?
I did babysit.
That's
so
awesome.
I actually had to, I think when I was like 12 or 13, I had to do a, whatchamacallit, like the CPR certification for like 12 or 13.
Course,
yeah, exactly.
I did that too.
So I was babysitting certified, I guess. I guess my real job, I taught golf to juniors. So I taught kids how to golf for
Little kids?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome.
And it actually is great now because our coaches made us learn. So I'm a lefty, and they made us learn how to play from the other side of the ball, so we could kind of mimic what it was like to teach a kid who's never picked up a golf club before. So it's pretty cool. So now I can play lefty or righty.
So now you golf ambi.
I'm not very good ambi, but I can at least hit a ball righty and play a few holes. So yeah,
that's awesome. My son is actually left-handed.
Oh, awesome.
And he's like the odd man out around here.
Absolutely.
And so we always are like trying to hand him stuff to the front, like to his right hand, because we're all right-handed.
Right.
And he's just like, don't you guys know? Like, it's been 11 years. Like you would think you know that.
Well, and this is why we have lower life expectancies, right? Because all the righties assume we're righty.
Because we're all stressing you out.
Yeah, exactly.
So your college background is in aerospace engineering and financial engineering.
Correct.
You got a lot of personality for being an engineer, let me just say.
Thanks, I think.
How did you pick those majors, and what was your intended career path?
Yeah. So when I was 13, my hobby was launching model rockets. And so my grandfather and I were very close. Grew up outside Chicago, actually. So, you had cornfields, and he lived in Wisconsin.
Places to do that.
Absolutely. So the first couple landed on top of buildings that we weren't planning on. So, high schools, farms, barns, stuff like that. And so did the science for a couple of years and got a little bit into the math, as much as kind of a 14-year-old can.
That's great.
Just decided that I wanted to be a defense contractor and design missiles for the government. So from 13 to 18, I only applied to 5 schools. I only applied to top aerospace schools and went to the best one that I got into. So it's kind of what happened.
So you wanted to do defense contracts?
Yeah, I actually worked for a defense contractor for a couple summers.
Okay.
Before I got out of engineering. So
building missiles or?
Flight simulators for UAVs. So, the little drones that kind of fly around. So we were doing... I was coding flight simulators for bigger kind of robotics training simulation for U.S. Special Forces. So that was pretty cool.
Crazy.
It was insane stuff.
My brother's a rocket engineer. I think I told you that.
Yeah. Except my stuff ended up in Pokemon Go.
There you go.
Which is basically all that engineering and education.
Actually probably better.
I don't even know what a Pikachu looks like, but allegedly when you show Pokemon Go, like that's my technology. That's kind of what we were doing, was like Pokemon Go, but for military type stuff.
That's actually really cool. We love Pokemon Go around here.
Yeah.
It's one of our favorites. Because we got to catch those Pikachus. You don't even know what one looks like.
I hear they're worth a lot of points.
Yeah, apparently.
So many. Yeah, all the points.
So what was your actual career path?
So actually graduated with an aerospace engineering degree. So I convinced my technical advisor to count Econ 400 as a technical elective in aerospace.
Good job.
I don't even know how I did that, but he was this old kind of
sales background there.
Something like that. It was probably my first sales job, right? I was convincing him to count an econ class for engineering. And so graduated early from Michigan, didn't want to leave my friends, didn't want to give up Ohio State tickets for another year. And so ended up applying and getting into the financial engineering program in Michigan. This was 2005, 2006. This is back pre-financial crisis, when Wall Street couldn't hire engineers fast enough. Ended up getting an internship at Credit Suisse, which is a major kind of investment bank. They're kind of one of the top 2 investment banks out of Switzerland. And then did an internship, got an offer, ended up trading derivatives, volatility arbitrage, structured products.
Nobody understands any of those words you just said.
Yeah, so fair point. Traded stock options during the financial crisis.
Stock options. Yeah. There we go.
Stock options during the financial crisis. And yeah, front row seat to all the calamity that went down from 2007 to 2014. Yeah, even through. So I was there for 7 years. So it's pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you end up in residential real estate?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, not a lot of former Wall Street private equity guys. So ended up meeting a girl when I was living in New York. She was a Coloradan.
It's always a girl.
Always a girl. So like everyone who transplants from the East or West Coast of Colorado, there's a girl involved.
There's
or
lots
a guy.
of you.
Yep. So chased a girl out to Colorado. Her family was out here and just didn't want to raise a family in New York without family out there. And so as a trader, you really don't have a lot of skills. I mean, you're in accounting, so like you kind of understand that traders don't really do anything besides yell and price stuff. You actually do the real work. We just kind of read your financial statements and try to figure out where the price is going. Mean? Yeah, exactly. Right. So a private equity firm in town was like, "Hey, we'll take a shot on a New York guy," and gave me an incredible opportunity to come in and learn not only private equity, also real estate development, and that's really when I decided to go off on my own. That between the Wall Street background, the private equity background, the real estate development background, and kind of what my skill set was at the time, and where I think our competitive advantage was, it just made a lot of sense to go into residential.
So how do you apply your previous career lives? I have those in quotes on my notes. How do you translate those to residential real estate?
Yeah. So I think no matter the level of business that you're in, right? Whether it's small, big, bulge, whatever, mega cap, right? I think planning is always central to executing on whether it's a business plan or a transaction or a strategy. The planning is always extremely important. And in my experience, at least in networking with other small business owners, it's always lack of planning. Like small business owners tend to be very much like, oh, this sounds like a great idea. Let's just go, right? Let's spend a bunch of money and like just see if it works, right? And so I think after seeing what it takes to raise capital, after seeing what it takes to execute on a plan, having not only the plan for Blue Pebble, so I use private equity models for my kind of financial modeling of my little residential sales group. And then also when we're consulting with our clients, like taking the expertise of, hey, look, I know you want to get your house on the market right away. I know you want to get into a house right away, and I'm going to help you do that. While we do all this, it's really important that we make sure we have all of your ducks in a row before we get down this path. Otherwise, we might waste a lot of time, right? And so it's taking that kind of consulting background as the trader who sees the market, sees everything, and is able to kind of advise their clients on what to trade or what not to trade. The private equity guy who, at the end of the day, you're a consultant, like, should you be investing in this fund or that fund or these sponsors or that sponsors?
Plus your process background.
Plus my process. Yeah. And
so you get the processes plus the.
Yeah. And the engineering kind of like stack of, just crank through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we there's a lot of ways that those lives touch and feel without people kind of expressly knowing that's where it came from.
That's cool. So there are so many places and ways to create a real estate career. There's like 1,000 options, right? You could be your lone wolf. You could be in, a huge market center. You have 1,000 options.
Totally.
How did you settle on creating a team?
Yeah. So the team. Oh man, I'm gonna tell everyone my new grand plan, right?
Yeah.
There's a grand plan. So, Blue Pebble.
He has a plan, guys.
There's a plan, shocker. Blue Pebble is part of the plan, right? So, the team for me, it was never anything but creating a team. Yeah. So I love helping people. I love answering questions. I love analyzing a market, negotiating with real estate agents who may or may not know what they're doing. Not my favorite thing to do.
Right.
Consulting people on which color carpet or paint. Not
better people for that.
Better people for that. Right. So where my skill set is, like as a team leader, process, consulting, advising, that's kind of where my highest and best use naturally is.
I love that.
And then also, I want to be a principal again one day, and I want to create a great investment company. And it's really hard to raise money to do investments unless you find your own deals. If you're dependent on brokers bringing you deals, then how are you going to raise money over the next guy that saw the exact same deal? So from my perspective, I can create a brokerage team that can originate a bunch of deals. Now I can see every single deal that comes across my desk, and now I have a capital pool behind me. There's a lot of great business to do if we can do that.
So we were talking before we started rolling. You were an assistant team leader,
Correct,
in a brokerage.
Yes.
And we talked about like how, being a real estate agent is actually a better way to create money faster,
in my opinion.
In your opinion,
yeah.
So you're the only person that's ever said that to me, and I work with. I work within a brokerage here locally. I help them.
Yeah.
So can you kind of explain to me, how you see and like kind of what your analysis is of like where the best way is for real estate people to make money in the fastest way? Because I think most people get into real estate and don't really know how they're going to execute.
Yeah.
They don't realize they're creating a business. Like that happens in a lot of careers, especially
Absolutely.
ones where you like do the thing for a couple months and then all of a sudden, hey, you've got a whole nother career. Like you just don't realize you're creating a business. So for those people, kind of break it down for me, like what you see as the fastest way to make money.
Yeah.
And the most sustainable way to make money as a real estate agent.
Yeah, totally. So I don't think fast and sustainable in real estate are ever part of the same sentence. Right.
That's
so, and as you mentioned, there are a lot of ways to make money in real estate. And one of the big hot topics now, especially with millennials getting older, is kind of passive income. Right? Millennials are, how do I create passive income? It's, passive income dream, life hacking, all that stuff. And so
the gig economy,
how do I work as little as possible so I can maximize my experiences, knowing that I make the money I need for those experiences?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Exactly. Right. So I think a lot of brokerages are focusing on these kind of passive income type strategies. And most people who are getting into real estate or most young business owners don't have the life experience to really know like the gestation time of securing one of those profit share leads, right, or revenue share leads, whatever it might be. It depends on the brokerage that you're in.
Yes.
Right. So there are a number of different brokerages that offer these types of things, whether you're talking revenue share or profit share, or, same kind of thing. And so over my course of time as the ATL for a local or vice president for that brokerage, just looking at the amount of time I had to spend to try and make passive income just off of that didn't make a lot of sense. And so what I found was that if I took the time that I was lead generating for agents to come join my team and instead was just more purposeful about, the networking that you have on your board over there or the cold calling or the sphere calling or just being a better person in the community, you can generate a much better pipeline, which is effectively residual income and sales once you actually have those relationships. And so that's kind of what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
I love it. So what have been your greatest obstacles in creating your own team?
I would say not knowing anyone. Yeah.
Because you're not a native.
Because I'm not native.
It's hard. And you were working in a firm for a while, so.
Yeah, and I was traveling to Mexico, and I got divorced right when I became a real estate agent. So note to anyone who's thinking about getting a real estate license and becoming a broker, like, do not do it when you don't have money. Like, you need money to get started.
Yeah,
so,
everything needs money to get started. Every business does.
Absolutely, right. Yeah. And so I think for me, not being a native, fresh off of a divorce, didn't have any deals, didn't have any money, didn't know anyone, like, my first 6 months was really, kind of cold calling 4 hours a day, having 4 or 5 coffee appointments. Yeah. Actually protein shakes.
There we go. We're living on protein shakes.
Yeah. I lost about 45 pounds in the 6 months from the time that I got separated until the time that I kind of closed my first deal. Right. I lost about 45 pounds, of which about the last 20 was simply just stress around, kind of my business and not having any money and not wanting to spend it.
Yeah, we don't recommend that diet.
No, don't. That's don't want to go back there ever again. And I think that was the biggest problem. And really, once I met people and once my network started building, we met, through that kind of process, right? That it's just gotten a lot easier. That's
great. So, what have been some of the greatest successes in building your team?
That's a really good question. I was trying to reflect. I was trying to guess what you were going to ask me, and that was one that was close, but not quite the same thing. I think My biggest success to date in terms of this current endeavor is helping my current. So the core of my team has been together for pretty much a year. So,
That's awesome.
my business has been in its current state for about 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I brought on my first agent a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
And so I carried him. Not only did I support myself through my second year in the business, I supported him through his first.
Because you're going to have to, right?
Yeah, you have to be giving him leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think getting Matt through his first year in the business and now seeing him, he's brought us 4 or 5 deals in the last 2 weeks, right?
Wow,
so
nice
he's
job,
he's
Matt.
killing it, and he's going to make more money this year than he's ever made in his life, right? And so to be able to say that I did that for somebody in their second year on their own,
I
right?
love that. You're
because
just like
of
lit up by that.
yeah, because of my infrastructure and our process, like that's cool. Right?
Yes, isn't it? It's cool to watch other people thrive.
If I could give everyone on my team the best living, the best life, they're just a great living, a great environment for them to be able to fund their lifestyle off of, and I can just make a living doing it. Like that's, what else do you need? Like that's pretty much it.
I love that. I want to ask you, I have other questions, but I want to ask you about what you're seeing in the market in Colorado right now. Cause actually, I have a couple websites that send me houses just because I look at
just
houses.
a couple?
Not because I'm looking for houses, but I'm seeing price drops, which is not something that we've been seeing in the market in the last 5 or 6 years here in Colorado. So
it's not.
Will you talk about that?
Absolutely. And we actually track our own data. Shocker, because I'm a nerd.
Yeah, no, I love it.
And you'll actually start getting our emails now.
Yay!
So
I think I already got one.
Maybe you got one. You'll get the next one next week.
That's really fine. I love data.
Yeah, no, we're very
data
driven. So, Colorado's still hot, still in a seller's market. You still don't have that much inventory on the market.
Still inventory.
So very much. And so it's interesting because a lot of people that talk about Denver market statistics, they go very high level without drilling down into what's actually happening. So how do you get more price decreases, which is what you're noticing, at the same time that you have zero inventory still on the market?
Yeah,
right?
that's why I was curious.
That doesn't make any sense, right?
And, because I ask questions and because I'm data driven, and I'm like, but we don't have inventory. Why are we dropping prices? What's happening?
Yeah,
that's why you're here and I'm asking you questions about it.
Thank you so much. This is actually the best part of the market. What's going on? So this is where I get super nerdy. So what's actually happened is, days on market, if you're talking about detached homes. So I take the market and separate it into 2 segments. So we have the detached market, which is, the normal single family with a yard and, your picket fence and all that stuff. And then you have attached, which is your condo product, your townhomes, your row homes, and, a lot of the higher density stuff that's being built. These 2 markets have diverged. So supply levels between the 2 have diverged over time for a number of systematic reasons, but we're going to kind of eliminate the attached product for the conversation for now because
I wanted to talk about that, but we'll get back.
It's a slower market. And so what's going on over there is just not as interesting. It's just more of a supply market where people are seeing the price decreases, and kind of what you're noticing is on the detached side.
Yeah, they're all detached.
Yeah. And what's happened, in my opinion, is days on market hasn't really shifted, except we're not seeing multiple offers as much anymore. So homes are still selling in that first weekend or first week. So days on market on average is right around 6 or 7 days, right? But there's a big difference between 6 or 7 days on market when you sell in that first weekend or 6 or 7 days on market when you sell on Tuesday, right? Because the buyer then gets to see the house on Friday or Saturday, think about it. They might get to go see some other stuff. They have a day or 2 to make a decision. They can see that your house didn't sell over the weekend, so they're not in a multiple offer situation. So they can take their time, casually kind of like do whatever they want to do, and then submit the offer. So you end up getting the house under contract. So the actual high level data doesn't change, but the underlying demand, right, is just not there because prices have gone up and not as many people can afford them as they were able to afford over the last 5 years.
Isn't that crazy?
So what's happening, in my opinion, is before, over the last 5 years, where it was like multiple offers, like crazy, like get it sold.
We did 6 months it was 6 months of looking for houses. And this was 6 years ago. So we bought our house 6 years ago.
Right.
And we did multiple offers. Like we actually were the 9th contract on this house because all of them fell through before. And that's the only reason we got this house.
It's crazy.
Because we were the 9th contract and we actually closed.
Yeah. I remember the first two buyers I worked with when I was a lone wolf, as you mentioned, was I submitted probably 40 offers combined.
Yeah, we did a ton of offers. We were writing letters.
Yeah.
I was like cute pictures of my babies and puppies. Like,
sure, it's not allowed anymore. They're really cracking down on that.
Well, it was allowed when I was doing it.
Yeah. And if it helped you get the house, great. And so, what I think is happening is the high level numbers aren't changing because there's still a lot of demand, though the underlying demand is not as ferocious. And as a result, when you're looking at how you comp and price property, stuff matters now that didn't matter a year ago? I.e., are you on the right side of the street? Are you on a corner lot? Is there traffic?
When we are you south facing or north facing?
Yes. Are you in this subdivision or are you in that subdivision? Because now when we're pricing comps, like we didn't cross subdivisions before because there was all the same. Everything just sold immediately. So let's just figure out what's in the area.
Yeah, what's closest.
Exactly. So now that I think in certain areas, prices got artificially inflated because there was just this lack of supply. And now when people actually have an extra day to just sit back and think about what's on the market,
that just blows my mind.
In my opinion, that's what's happening. And we're seeing it with our buyers, with our sellers. Like you're getting the economics and the high level stats. It's just the underlying motivation is just it's not there. So you're not seeing a huge change in the market. You're just seeing a weird way in how it's transacting right now.
We were talking before we started rolling about how people aren't buying right now. How there's been kind of this lull in the economy for everything that's not like necessity, right? So in the want economy, basically, is what I like to call it. So I've watched, because I'm a birth doula, and I've watched, all the agencies be like, the calls literally stopped in April. Like they're like, we're generating 20 to 30 calls a month. And it's just been crickets.
Right.
So we're watching this lull in the want economy right now with the tariffs, and that we have lots of things we can talk about there.
Yep.
So that just really is interesting to me that it's translating to the housing market. Plus we're looking at prices that are out of a lot of people's range here in the Denver area.
Yep.
I mean, we're looking at 2,500 square foot houses going for 550, 650.
At least.
Yeah. My brother and sister-in-law just bought over in Westminster and over in Wheat Ridge, and I was just like, you're buying it for what? How much? But that translates to how much my house is worth.
Totally.
I mean, we bought 6 years ago at 330.
I'm sure you're up money on that right now.
We're about 50 probably.
There you go. Let me know if you want me to check it.
We're just going to sit on it. We're just going to sit on it.
Just sit on a lot of equity. Absolutely.
So that's very interesting. Thank you for explaining that. So also, could you talk about the attached home stuff? Because that's really interesting to me, because we were watching a lot of condos go up. We're watching a lot of townhomes, those up and downy kind of townhomes.
Slot homes, shotgun homes.
Yeah, I love those, though. They're so cute. They call them like the little cities.
Yeah, like the little boxes.
Yeah, they're these little boxes, and they're straight up and down, and they're actually really cute. And they're putting them in places with like shopping and stuff like that. So what is that market doing?
Yeah,
because that's interesting to me.
So I think it's, you touched on two things there. Just going back really quick to your kind of comment about the economy, I actually think that's in a weird way helping Denver right now.
We needed a slowdown.
We needed rates low. So whether or not we needed to slow down, you and I could argue about that literally for the next 4 hours. So at the end of the day, though, if you look at where average pricing is for Denver homes and what average incomes are for Denver, there's a mismatch. When rates last fall were 5%, our market fell off a cliff because people couldn't afford to buy at that average price when rates were 5%. Now with the slowdown, tariffs, Fed, whatever, and conventional rates back below 4%, some of these homes that people couldn't afford last fall at this pricing, now they're able to afford. And so we're seeing people get back into the market because now rates are low enough where they can afford the homes that they've been looking at. Whereas if this stuff wasn't happening and the economy was ripping and all of a sudden rates are, let's say 10 years at 4 or 5, and now mortgage rates are 6 or 7, like those people would not be able to afford these homes. Right.
That's so crazy to me.
It's kind of weird where like the negative stuff actually ends up helping us a little bit. The attached side, that's been what's been built over the last 5 years. As construction costs in Denver have gone up significantly, you need, and land prices have gone up as well. You need to put more units on the same size piece of land to make the numbers work. Right. And so you're just seeing a much bigger glut of supply in those types of projects because any piece of land right now that's being sold is probably getting developed into higher density. Right. And so the other issue you have with these is that some of these builders are not experienced builders. They're late cycle participants. And so the construction quality might not be there. And so
people don't want to buy that.
And don't want to buy that. And
especially at the prices.
Totally. And especially new construction. Mismatch. Right. I mean, you have most new construction prices 15% over the resale price. So you're paying a huge premium per foot to buy that. And if it's not worth it, you're not going to buy it. Right. So we just think there's a lot of that product being built in areas where we'll see if there's a lot of absorption. It tends to be very pocketed. And so, because that market is just a little bit different we just tend to look at it a little bit separately.
Well, it makes sense though.
Yeah, just different supply demand dynamics versus detached.
You have different buyers, you have different
Totally
dynamics, you have different builders, different prices during
relationships. I mean, there are HOAs and party walls and all that stuff, and so
right. It's totally. It makes sense though. All right, so you have a software for real estate agents in the works. What can you tell us about this project?
Sure, yeah. So I got really frustrated. So there's a role in real estate called the transaction coordinator.
Right.
And so whether or not people are familiar with this role, basically if an agent will hire somebody typically as a contractor to help them make sure their files are compliant. So that's making sure all your disclosures are signed and put in the right spot.
There's a lot of boxes to check.
A lot of boxes to check.
Timelines and things that have to happen in a certain order.
Yes. Yeah.
With real estate deals.
Very process, which is why I think I like it, because I'm a nerd and I just go through the process and I just check boxes. So I got really frustrated with my transaction coordinator because I was paying for me, and it's an obscene amount of money, $300-$400 a file, to do what I thought was a terrible job. And so a partner of mine was creating an app for an entirely separate industry, and I was helping him put together the financial model so he could go out and raise capital for it. I got really frustrated. Might have had a drink to facilitate some of my creative juices, and realized that there's an incredible opportunity in the real estate workflow space to create an app that really just allows me to run my business from my iPad. And so
that'd be huge.
And so as part of being my team's with Keller Williams, I'm at Keller Williams for a long time because I truly believe in their strategy in terms of where they're bringing technology to their agents. And so between the infrastructure that we have at Keller Williams, being able to run my business upstream of my deals from my iPad, now I have a deal risk management system software where this software that we're working on, I can run that from my iPad. So now literally the two phases of my business, whether it's generating leads or servicing the business, I can run them from my iPad.
That's awesome. So it gives you flexibility, but it's also going to be a solution for other agents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With all their compliance and all of that, which is a huge issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to be rolling it out to other agents.
Because you guys just get a ton more compliance like every year, boxes you have to check and things like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Getting paid at closing and, oh, shoot, that's right. We have that inspection objection coming up. Like, why didn't I know about that?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, who's going to draft that doc, or did anyone actually approve that? Like all this stuff is there. And so it's really cool. I mean,
so most of the larger brokerages have lawyers in-house that review all the deals. Is that going to be part of the app, or is that separate?
We really view this as a tool to augment those people.
Cool.
So, your in-house compliance is probably not going to get changed. I really do think that you do need to put eyes on it and make sure that oh, this is the actual file that was put in that box. So I don't know without crazy AI, like reading technology, like if you could physically remove the person from that process. This is more like, how do I make sure that all my deals are on time, no fire drills, what's next, when does it due, and it pops up so it's all in one place.
So it's a super streamlined process too. It'll
Absolutely.
help you guys move through stuff quicker.
Yeah, totally.
And it'll help systematize your process.
Yeah, and leverage my overhead, so my assistant can go back and forth. She doesn't need to be licensed because she's just like putting stuff in a box. Exactly. And then it also gives transparency to our clients. So you can give access to your clients so they can see their deals. And so they can watch it move down the timeline. They'll know what's up. Awesome. They'll know if we're behind or if stuff's coming up. And it also helps keep my agents accountable. So if clients are seeing it, now they see all these red stop signs, like, what's going on? Right. Oh, shoot. Let's call so-and-so.
Well, and that just, and it helps because most of us lay people have a really hard time understanding how those transactions move through the system.
Correct.
But it also helps them see your value too, because you have all these check marks you have to do.
Right.
And most people don't see that.
No.
So that'd be really, really helpful too, to be like, this is our value. Like, this is what we provide. And that you can watch us, do our value.
It's funny sitting down. I've actually sat down in a listing presentation with someone who was threatening to sell it by themselves. And I said, man, go for it, right? We're not, look, we charge a lot of money. I'll just be upfront. We charge a lot of money because we do great service and we provide a lot of value, right? If you don't if you get sticker shock, you want to do it yourself, go for it. Take out my iPad with the software on it. Say, okay, here are literally the 8 stages, the 5 steps in each stage happening at this point in time. So if you want to do it yourself and you've never done it before,
you're done.
Go for it. Or you can just pay me 3% and we're good to go. Right. Okay, cool. Right. And so it just makes that conversation a lot easier.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love that. I know. And that's something that actually my husband and I talk about all the time, because I was like, we're using real estate agent. Like, we have to have the people to do the thing. Right.
Right.
And he's just like, I don't get it. And I was like, that's because you don't see it. Like, you don't see the backside.
It's like, I think real estate is going the way of financial advisory.
Yes.
Where, look, you have robo-advisors, Charles Schwab, charging 10 basis points on your value, and they're just going to throw you in the 2030 target fund, and we're just going to manage it with our algos and just watch your account, whatever, right? On the other hand, there's a lot of really wealthy people paying JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and other local advisors 100 basis points for 1% of 100, 200, $500 million. Like, they're probably doing something right? That Charles Schwab is not doing to be able to charge someone $5 million a year and provide service and value for that.
It's just like tax and accounting. I mean, we're watching the automation of the low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
Payroll, bookkeeping, tax.
QuickBooks costs me $80 a month and I can basically run it. I mean, I would love to hire you to do that, but it doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
So,
well, you have to be sure you're doing it right. But anyway,
financial engineering background and also director of finance background. So unfortunately, I'll have to check my chart with Kat.
I feel like I need to look at it now.
Now you probably do. Yeah, that's right. Finance guy doing accounting, we're probably in trouble. So
yeah, that usually actually ends up being a problem. It's always like the CFOs that are like, I know how to do bookkeeping. I don't understand. And I'm just like, have you seen what you've done?
Yeah, I'm a CFO. I can be a CAO too, right? Like, this is so easy.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that as we look to that future where, there'll be less agents doing what we do, and we'll just, we'll be more of kind of like a full service JP Morgan type person instead of a Schwab. And we can just coexist, and it's totally fine.
I mean, there's H&R Block, and then there's JEOK and CPA. Like,
absolutely.
There's different spectrums.
And I prefer
and different users and different demographics.
The latter as well. So it's great.
Totally makes sense.
Awesome.
Okay, so before I ask my last question, what is the easiest way for people to find you?
Easiest way people to find me? 720-526-2583. That's our main line.
Oh my gosh, it gives me heart palpitations every time somebody gets their phone number.
Oh no, can we erase that?
No, you can do that. I just would never.
Oh, that's my main office line.
Not your cell phone?
No.
Okay, phew.
No. So we're okay. 720-526-2583.
Yeah, you can call Blue Pebble Group.
Call Blue Pebble Group. We also have a website. It's bluepebblegrp.com.
And we link them all.
Perfect.
Everything.
Facebook, we have a community page called Mile High Living. So if you're in the Front Range, we post 10 cool little hikes or golf things or whatever. So
the free days at the zoo to avoid.
We post the free days at the zoo, and then you can decide.
Those are our avoid days.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, in your opinion, what is the one thing you wish every home buyer or seller understood better about the process? You can make it two things. Everybody's always like, can I have more than one thing? You can have more than one thing.
Number one, the person on the other side of the transaction is not out to screw you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Can I swear?
It's not personal. All
right, I want to swear. This is not personal. When their agent submits an objection and it's a big number, it's not because they don't like you, and it's not because they don't like anything you did. It's just because that's what their agent is telling.
Business.
And it's not even them. It's their agent. Yeah. So blame the agent, right? If you're getting something that just doesn't seem right, don't blame the person, blame the agent.
Because the person's just going on.
The person just probably going. Exactly. And now it might, maybe the person has whatever. That's number one. And if everyone just approached a transaction.
I really like that.
Like if everyone would just approach a transaction like, look, these are real people, not just names and not just electronic documents. And they don't know what they're doing just as much as we don't know what we're doing. So let's just try and figure this out.
So home buying is so emotional. So that's really, really good to reframe it. Look, nobody's out to get you here.
But what's the emotional part?
They're just trying to get, their best deal.
And the emotional part's on the finishes. Like, oh, I don't like the carpet, or I want this, or I want that, or we're going to do this to the house, and little Johnny's going to be able to play in the backyard, and it's going to be awesome, right? That's the emotional attachment. Actual of negotiating the deal. If we could just put everything off, just push all the emotion for a month, right? And just kind of get through actually even just 2 weeks.
Yeah, the business part of it.
Just get past inspection, right? 2 weeks. And then I think the second part, more in addition to that, from my perspective, is really being organized. And what I mean by that is on the sell side, you should know what you're selling. So you should have pre-inspections. You should have You should do work not on your home, but with your home, just knowing, do I need to replace the roof? Do I have issues with my sewer line? Is my furnace on its last leg?
What about windows? What about the AC? What about fencing? What about, all the things we know in our heads that need to happen?
The major things.
Yeah.
Because those are what are going to kill a transaction. And on the buy side, just get pre-approved. It takes an extra 2 weeks. Saves you so much trouble, so much time,
Get
so
it all
much
submitted,
effort.
do the thing.
Make your offers easier to accept. Just get pre-approved. I think if we did those 3 things, it'd be great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
For
I appreciate this. Is awesome.
Yay!
This is crazy. I don't know what to do.
I got Jared. Hey y'all, thanks for listening. If you found this podcast to be inspiring, helpful, and entertaining, please like and subscribe. This helps us grow the community and reach more people. If you are interested in learning more about this episode's guest or accessing any of the books or other resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, be abundant.